Hello, YouTubers, and welcome back to another episode of The Grandstand here on the Ohio Patriot Education Network YouTube channel. We are joined by Corey today for this Grandstand episode about is Law and Order Syndrome real? Specifically, what we're going to talk about today is I woke up earlier today. I went on Reddit for a little bit to check out some stuff and saw there was a community called 2A Liberal, or 2A Liberals, I think is what it is. It's a subreddit on that site, and it's basically them talking about Rittenhouse. At first, I thought like one kid was talking shit about Rittenhouse, but it turns out they were like on Kyle's side, and it was somebody else that was talking shit about Rittenhouse. It's going to be a combat vet, so we'll talk about that for the majority of the day. I do want to mention something real quick though, and this was a fake tweet that was put out by somebody on Twitter the day after the midterm elections, claiming to be current Ohio Governor Mike DeWine, which said, "Thank you for re-electing me as your governor of Ohio. My first order of business will be eradicating the people of Columbus."
What?
Yeah.
Jesus. Speaking of Kyle, did he move?
Maybe.
Because I noticed he was on a podcast with Chad Prather.
Okay.
Chad Prather lives here in Texas, and he actually was gonna go for our governor to be our governor, but he was on an episode or a podcast of his the other day, and people in the comments were, if I was reading it correctly, they said Kyle moved to Texas.
I mean,
now I don't know how true that is or not, but
I mean, I sure as shit wouldn't be staying in Illinois if I was him anymore.
No, I would. Yeah, if I was him, I would have moved too. Get the hell out of that area.
I mean, I'm pretty sure his house was doxxed dozens of times after that trial and everything. So.
Oh yeah, granted, probably all of his family, his mom, his dad, any relatives he had there in Kenosha.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure the whole family had to move.
Or
If they didn't,
or was he lived with his mom there? I think that's where it was at.
Do what?
Antioch, Illinois was where I believe he lived with his mother too as well.
Yeah.
Which was literally like spitting distance to Kenosha.
Oh yeah, they made it sound like he drove like hundreds of miles from his mom's house to Kenosha for that, when it was just,
yeah, he could have tossed a rock and hit Dominic Black in the forehead. Kenosha,
probably.
that's how close it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, so anyway, so going to this Reddit post here. This person said, "I always struggle with posting this stuff about KRB Kyle Rittenhouse. But after seeing this, quote, combat vets post in a tweet, I had to. Vets are not arbiters of the Constitution." Obviously, an arbiter would be the final say of settlement and stuff like that. Pure authority, like, it's essentially authoritarian. Actually, at the top there, it's a person who settles a dispute and has ultimate authority in the matter. So, and that's true. And the one thing I've noticed with a lot of these people that claim to be, combat veterans or just any kind of veteran in our country, is it's a lot of self-importance and like inflated ego. It seems like a lot, especially with like black rifle kind of people and stuff like that. It's those dudes that think they basically should have everything, and oh, fuck all you peons, you shouldn't be able to own like full auto or suppressors or anything else like that. So, but as this person claimed, he said, "Since murderer Kyle Rittenhouse is trending, I'll post this again, just some food for thought." And this was by a guy named Jed Said Enough. Person who claimed to be the combat vet was named Kenneth Ray McCain. Said, "Combat veteran here. Just a perspective, if you arrived armed to a place where violence is happening, prepared for violence, and you engage in violence, there is no self-defense. You are, in fact, a willing combatant. If you do this without being sanctioned by a government outside of a combat zone, you are also, in fact, a terrorist. We had another word for armed civilians operating outside the military as well, insurgent. If your recourse to the terrorist is to look up the criminal history of the victims, it is no different than looking up the criminal past of everyone who died on 9/11 in order to justify the hijackers. This kid was illegal all the way around. This shit is ridiculous."
Yeah, okay.
And then you got some people in here saying, first guy said, have one question here. Quote, armed citizens operating outside the military equals insurgents. What do you call the various armed protesters then? Did we have insurgency warfare in Kenosha? Do we then get to call the events of Oregon's Summer of Love an insurgency, which, I think we've talked about
Mm-hmm.
the Chaz/Chop several. There's people that were chopped up around that place, right? Like they found like multiple dead bodies
Oh
and
yeah.
like pieces, dumpsters around there, and it's like there's no way that Rasimo wasn't chopping motherfuckers up left and right in that place. Like how that dude didn't catch like several dozen felonies for being a de facto warlord of that place for like 20 something days is just insane to me. And I get, Yankees' perspective of things. Like, I'm sure he went on day number one, is what it was, when there was like an 18-year-old kid that basically was some like leftist kid that basically was the first leadership there, and it was the whole summer of love thing. And it was within like 2 days of that is when Rasmussen took over as warlord because there was a power vacuum and that kid stepped down. So,
but
yeah,
there's a lot about that
me,
shit that was fucked up, and should have been a lot of people that should have been charged with shit, but wasn't.
Well, what's interesting, and if we're gonna sit here and compare possibilities of Kenosha to Chaz and stuff like that, there was also a another one in Atlanta that was basically referred to as the Baz, I believe is what it was. I could be wrong about that one, but it was the Wendy's parking lot that existed. I'm trying to think what it was. The guy that got tried to steal a cop's tasers and then he got shot in the back is what it was.
Oh yeah. Anthony Brooks, wasn't
it? Maybe, I don't know. I can't remember.
No, I can't remember, but I know who you're talking about.
So the whole point is though, so basically you had a bunch of BLM militants, and those guys were legit terrorists at that point. Let's call it what it is. They had taken that place over, and they had several dozen roadblocks all around that area. This is back when Keisha Lance bought.
Are you there? Ohio, you there? Yeah, looks like we lost the host, fellas. Having some technical difficulties. Please stand by. Yeah, to the point he was making is just, it's all a fucked up situation. There's so many people that should have been charged all the way around. I don't know how many actually did, but I know for sure they all weren't. So I guess you could say it is what it is, but for sure, all of them should have been charged with something. And it still pisses me off that people will sit there and shit on Kyle, even though he was exonerated, acquitted of all charges, and he didn't cross state lines with an illegal firearm. It was already there in Kenosha, belonged to a friend of his. But the media and everybody will spin it however they want. They ignore the facts and the truth of everything. Even though Kyle was exonerated, they still call him a killer, a murderer. And they sit there and say that, oh, he went there and killed 3 black people. Not sure at all. He went there to provide first aid if need be. He was cleaning graffiti off of walls, off the church, off buildings. He even tried, what set off everything was he was putting out dumpster fires. And he just carried a firearm for protection because we all know what happened. So he ended up having to protect his life from 3 assailants, 2 of which he unfortunately had to kill, and the other one he wounded. Just rewatch the trial if you haven't seen it. Watch it, learn the facts. So, hopefully Ohio will be back in a minute. He's having technical difficulties. Insurgents. Sorry, it's thinking about that comment that one person posted, calling him a terrorist and an insurgent or whatever. It's fucking laughable, honestly. You think military personnel, whether they're active duty or retired, would be proud to be an American and proud of our constitutional rights that we're naturally born with, because we are unique. Other countries have some aspects of that, but no one has a constitution like we have here. And that separates us from the rest of the world. We have so many rights and freedoms that other people don't have the luxury of having. And it just irritates me that a lot of these vets will sit there and shit on our Constitution, Bill of Rights, just because they served and they think they're the only ones that, and the police have the same mentality, that they're the only ones that should own firearms, and us peasants should just bow down beneath them and the government and just thank our lucky stars that we're even alive. No, fuck that shit. We are naturally born with rights, and we have every right to exercise them. So I don't know what happened to those people, why they hold that view. It's like Dan Crenshaw. He's to me is a snake in the grass, because he's sitting there acting like a Republican, but he's a rhino. He's the big proponent of red flag laws, and that's just a dangerous situation all around, because it just strips you of your rights and due process. And as we've seen several times, when they actually go to, carry out the red flag law, the people on the other end have no idea what's going on. They don't know that all this, secret meeting and legal proceedings took place. So they're totally unaware, and then they get a knock in the middle of the night, or people kicking down the doors. Any person would rise to the conclusion that someone's breaking in their house and gonna defend themselves. So, and then those people get killed because, the crookedness of the government going behind people's back and letting them know what's going on, and they just bust down their door in the middle of the night, and it's just frustrating. It's bullshit. Fucking bots in the chat. I don't know. All I can say is, if you're not prepared, get prepared. whether it be food, water, what have you. Prepare now, because we definitely have some rough times ahead of us. I guess Ohio's still having some technical difficulties, not back yet. Might have to end the chat early, guys, if he doesn't get to come back. I'm not sure if there's anyone out in the chat right now. Hard to tell on my end. If you had any questions, drop them in the comment section. I'll do my best to hold down the show until Ohio jumps back in. One thing I am interested in to know, and there's already kind of a couple of people that been floating around that might become it, but I'm wondering who's going to be the new Speaker of the House now that the Republicans took over the House and finally, oh my God, I'm so happy, finally ousted the psycho POS Nancy Pelosi. I mean, when I found that out, I was happy to hear that the Queen of the Damned has been taken down. I know there's a better title for her, but yeah, we finally ousted her, so I'm curious to know who's going to be the new speaker. Hopefully it's not a rhino. Hopefully it's someone that'll actually do the job and do the job well. I don't know who it would be at this point, because there's really not any good politician anymore. They're all out for their own self-interest and making money. You know, the old saying, bullshit talks and money walks, or however it goes. They only care about their bottom dollar at the end of the day. They don't really give a shit about us people. Even though we're the ones that allow them to be in power, allow them to hold the position to represent us, they just honestly could care less about us. Until it comes to election day, then they, act like it's all about us and want to do right by us. And no, it's just fattening their pocketbooks. But yeah, I would love to find out who's going to be the new speaker. Like I said, hopefully it's someone good. I still can't believe it's taken this long for them to tally up all the votes. It's just ridiculous. Beyond ridiculous. We should have known that night, if not definitely the next day, of everything. Just too much fortification. But we'll see. All we can do, hope for the best and prepare for the worst. Like I said, we might have to end this chat early because we're already 19 minutes and 20 seconds in, and Ohio's still not back, so he's having a bunch of technical difficulty. Hopefully he'll be able to rejoin us momentarily. If there's anyone out in the comment section, you got any questions, put them in the comments and I'll try my best to answer them and keep it going until Ohio comes back. Oh,
Okay,
there he is. He's
fine.
back. He's back.
Yeah, sorry about that. Fucking computer said take a shit on me then.
It's all right. I'm trying to do my best to keep the chat going until you came back.
Notice the fucking spam bots popped in here.
Yeah, I can't do anything about it on my end.
You're fine. No, you're fine. You're fine. I got it. But yeah, I don't know where exactly I cut off when I was talking about Sequoia Turner. So
you dropped out when you first started talking about it.
Okay, so basically you had BLM set up a checkpoint around that burned out Wendy's that event happened at. When they set up the checkpoint, Sequoia Turner and her family had taken a wrong turn down the road. BLM guys or whatever apparently thought that they were trying to like ram the roadblock or something. Fired into their car, killed her. Her story pretty much went completely under the radar for a long time because it was a black on black crime.
Oh, of course.
And they finally did convict both the guys of murder that shot and killed her because it was multiple guys firing off at that vehicle that night. And yeah, it's just a sad situation because it's like there's no need for that. And what's even worse is you got Keisha Lance Bottoms, who was mayor then, sitting there basically defending the terrorist guys and being like, no, they had a right to be there and fire upon these cars. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about, lady?
Yeah, that's bullshit. That's just, oh my God, it's fucking just allowing the purge in real life now. That's all it is. That's all to me is what this is. It's just allowing them to create panic, anarchy, chaos, you name it. And it's bullshit. It's what it is.
Mm-hmm. And what I was going to equate back to the actual Chaz then was, I don't think a lot of people know this. There is a city councilwoman named Kamisha Sawant. I think that's how I pronounce her name. Or Sawant, maybe. She's an Indian foreign national that I believe was given naturalized citizenship in our country at some point in the past 10 to 15 years, give or take. And she was actually the mastermind behind the Chaz, a lot of it. She was the reason that they were able to get into the police station and take over that area. And what's interesting is that I don't know if Jenny Durkin is still mayor of Seattle, Washington or not at this point, but she was at the time of the Chaz. So Durkin, her address was unlisted because she apparently was some Obama cabinet position person or something like that at some point in history. And it was Sawant going to like the archive files and stuff like that, using her position as a city council member to find Durkin's address and give it to Simone and the people that made up the Chaz at the time. And they tried to form a second Chaz on Durkin's front lawn, and it was within about 12 hours of that is when the first Chaz got shut the fuck down finally. So it was a direct response.
I remember that, yeah. Because it was just awful funny. Oh, you want it to happen in one place, but you don't want it in your front yard?
Well, that's what it was too. And it was like, yeah, as soon as they tried to do that second one on her front yard, it's like, nope, shut down the original one. But up until that point, they're like, nope, everybody's being, and that's what I understand about all these things with the actual Chaz itself, because there were hundreds of people that lived in that Capitol Hill area and were being held hostage.
Yeah.
By the Antifa and BLM militants that were making up most of that part of the thing.
Well, that also, it's like, weren't they protesting and shit outside of like Supreme Court Justice's house and shit? Isn't that like actually against the law?
So the Brett Kavanaugh thing with Roe versus Wade, yes, it is. It actually breaks two different felonies because it's a federal felony, I believe, based on the fact that it has something to do with it being that they're Supreme Court judges or whatever. And then it's a state level felony, and I believe it's either Virginia or Maryland or both, because some of them live in Virginia, some of them live in Maryland is what it is. And yeah, it's like a felony to do it against any like sitting judge or justice or whatever the case be. But yeah, they just let it go. And the thing, what's even more fucked up about that actually, that situation is, you had the guy show up to Kavanaugh's house there with a whole backpack full of weapons and everything else like that, and they just sort of swept that under the rug as well at some point.
Yep. Rules for thee, not for me.
Yeah, just nuts. But yeah, I think the most interesting thing, looking back at the 20-something days that the Chaz actually existed there, was how you had just like the level of insanity seemed to kick up like every 10 minutes, basically. That's what it was.
And
there's actually a guy who It was his son and the son's buddy, I believe, had stolen a truck or an SUV around the place and were doing like donuts outside of the Chaz, and they got shot and killed by Antifa people. It's interesting because there was actually video uploaded to various internet sites of Antifa by their side legitimately trying to sweep the area and find shell casings that they had just shot and killed these kids. They were trying to clean up evidence right before the cops got there. And the father of the one has since, I believe, sued the city of Seattle, the state of Washington, I think some other people as well. I'm not mistaken on that one.
Has anyone been charged for the murders yet?
As far as I know, they have not been. I haven't really kept up with the case all that much, but yeah, as far as I know, it really hasn't been. Like it's
no, probably never will be, to be honest. Especially if they were policing their brass and they're all gonna hide each other and not gonna open up and tell anybody. So yeah, that case is gonna go unsolved probably forever.
Well, that's the entire point of the whole black bloc, is so they can't be identified. They can just come out, smack in there with a bike lock, and then just sort of slip back into the crowd.
Yep.
So, I don't know. And then, of course, people always want to blame the Proud Boys or whoever else for stuff. And it's like, those guys were just brought up as a counter initiative to what Antifa and BLM were doing at the time.
Yeah, because somebody has to stand up to them. I mean, this shit can't be left unchecked, because once it is, it's just going to continue, and it's only going to get worse until we devolve into an actual purge or something similar to it, because no one's standing up to them and putting them in their place and stopping the chaos.
I don't know if you remember, about a year or 18 months ago, somewhere in there, I believe it was someplace in New York. It might have been 2020. No, was it 2020? I think it was 2021. It was there was some kind of gala thing going on, and there was like a bunch of like conservative type people there or whatever, and then it was a bunch of Proud Boys there, and Antifa tried to like counter protest the thing or whatever, and got in a fist fight with a bunch of Proud Boys. And they tried to get into a knife fight with them. Like they were pulling knives and broken bottles and everything else out of the woodwork. And yeah, a bunch of Proud Boys got charged in that incident, but no Antifa got charged though. Shockingly.
Oh yeah. Oh, who could? Oh my God, who could have called that?
And of course, they were trying to say that the one dude was like this super racist, white supremacist, or whatever the case be. And he's like, "You realize this black woman over here is my wife, and here's our mixed race kids."
Yeah.
But no, they were saying that was apparently next level white supremacy.
It's fucking bullshit.
It is insane.
It's hypocritical.
It is. It's nuts.
You know, they're the only ones, honestly, that's, fanning the embers of racism when it's not, but they won't look at the actual facts of, all the black on black killing and everything. They just bypass that as, no, that's not happening. But white people are the devil. Only white people can be racist.
Yeah, I was reading something the other day, and it was, I forget what it was. I think it was part of a video or something. And it was showing like all the incidences on Twitter in the past like 5 years or something like that, of just like anti-white racism and stuff like that. And these people that were like, "Oh, you got to kill whitey" and everything else like that. I'm like, God damn, man. Like, what the fuck?
Just imagine if the shoe was on the other foot right now, and all the people that are screaming "kill white people," white people are racist. Imagine if it was, the script was flipped and it was the white people doing that. Do you know how continuous that it would be on the news worldwide that was going on?
I don't know if you saw that video that I dropped in NEA's Discord and the news and politics one about she's like a black chick or a mixed race chick or whatever.
I saw that. Yes, I did. That was
okay.
Yeah.
So she had mentioned something in that, and I forget what that girl's name is offhand, but I'll tell you what, like that girl is wife material to me, 100%.
Oh yeah, she was gorgeous.
And yeah, she was mentioning something about like, the way things are going in the next like 35, 40 years or whatever, you're gonna have like a white civil rights movement or something like that. And my thinking is like, I've talked about this as a possibility of like grid down and stuff quite a bit, honestly. I think truthfully, depending on how balkanized this country gets in the next like 3 to 5 years, I think we're going to see tribal warfare. I think you're going to see people go into tribes at that point.
Maybe.
And I don't know if that's going to be based on. It could be based on race in some cases. It could be based on other things in some other cases and whatnot. But I definitely see that that's going to be, and that's one thing I've, my whole thing with like autism kicking in and everything else like that. It's always how long is a big picture thing going to be, and it's to me it's basically you'd have like this 10 years of tribulation essentially and various wars and conflicts and stuff, and at some point there would be tribalistic warfare in there is what it would be before revolution. And yeah, I think it's going to get a lot worse before it gets better. And
it definitely will get a lot worse
as well.
I think we're going to see it getting a hell of a lot worse come next year.
Well, we're still supposed to have that railroad strike at some point, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that they delayed till after midterms here, which is now after midterms.
Well, I mean, just look at the fact that now they're talking about rationing. I don't know if it's gone anywhere since we first started talking about it, on like Matt's chat. And I think we talked about it on Honda's channel as well, but they're wanting to start to ration diesel, industrial diesel.
Yeah.
Which if they do that, that's going to fucking hurt our supply chain problem even worse, because right now, we're already having a big supply chain issue. All these fucking plants are either getting planes crashed into them, mysteriously catching fire. That one oil refinery just the other day in California burnt to the ground. Yep. None of this shit's helping. And they say it's coincidence. Oh, it happens every once in a while. You look back in history to see how many of these burnt down a year, you might hear about a couple.
Yeah.
We're already up to 20 something now, aren't we?
It's probably 30 or 40 at this point, honestly, or more.
Yeah, exactly. So we're pushing 50 now. That's not doing any good at all for the supply chain issue. Now you couple that with diesel shortage. That's gonna, in my opinion, that's gonna crash the economy, and it's gonna send us into a Great Depression to make the first one look like child's play.
There was a book I read. It was one of my neighbors that told me I should read it. It was called 1 Second After. And it's I don't know if you ever read it or not, but basically the gist of it is it's about EMPs being detonated in our atmosphere, which I think was China that did it, if I'm not mistaken. I could be wrong about that one. I think that's who it eventually was like labeled as, was like China or like one of those Asian countries like that did like the actual terrorist attacks, what it is. And basically what it is and I'm assuming this is actually true because it says it was, if you take a non-nuclear warhead and shoot it up far enough into the atmosphere, it'll create basically an EMP burst.
Yep.
And that's basically what the gist of this whole book was about. And it's essentially the fallout after the fact of like, cars don't run unless they're made in like the 1950s or something like that, or 60s or so. And like a lot of other stuff. And it's basically about a guy and his kids trying to survive and whatnot. And it's just like the old folks' homes and everything else like that are just like death zones immediately because everybody that's on ventilators and everybody had to be like, that's the one thing I fear about, like having to go into like surgery and anything else like that. It's like, God forbid that ever happens under surgery. And you just end up having a situation where you're basically on the table or whatever and lights go out and don't come back on. It's like, well, you might be fucked then.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even, honestly, no country would have to drop an EMP here. I mean, they could. Granted, yes, that's a plausible theory to have that they could do that. Scenario, thank you. But they don't even have to do that. Look what's going on right now. It's working perfectly. If they continue to hinder the supply chain and the grocery stores start becoming bare, that right there, we can only live, what is it, three days without food?
It's actually, if you look into, it's like 3 days without water, and it's like 30 to 40 days before you starve to death without any kind of food at all.
Okay, so it's 3 days without water, and
it's supposed to be like 7 days without food, but it's technically like 30 to 40 days before you actually starve to death.
True. In most cases, granted, there are going to be people that are going to die after a week of food, depending on how their health is right now anyways. But that's all you got to do is interrupt the supply chain permanently to where no one's getting food and water. And that right there is going to drastically kill the population. And it's going to happen relatively quick. Granted, yes, you could drop a EMP and it'll have the same effect. But once the people start dying off from starvation and dehydration, which, you know, the younger people sadly will go, the older people will definitely go first, you know, because they're pretty much the unhealthy, the sick, cancer patients, etc. They'll go quick. So, like I said, you wouldn't even have to drop an EMP. Just stop the supply chain, cut it off, and it's already happened. You stop the ability to move it with the diesel or gas or whatever. Yeah. And you wouldn't even have to drop a nuke or anything, because once, you know, say if that happens, the supply chain's interrupted permanently, and we're a couple months into it or 6 months into it, all these people have died off, say half the population. What's going to happen to these plants and everything that are dependent on people to run them, you know, like the nuclear plants, you know, however they maintain them? What happens when those people aren't alive anymore to maintain these plants? Those plants are going to start failing. Right?
Yeah, it would be. Well, I mean, honestly, the one thing I will give Hollywood actually on that one is they did a pretty good job in that Why the Last Man show, showing how it would fail. And yeah, when you realize like it's almost all dudes that control all that shit. Not good. Not good if you're a civilization full of women is what it is on that one.
But I mean, there's steps that you can take without having to drop bombs on a country. Yeah. Just cut off their food and water.
Yep.
And the rest will take care of itself, if that's your goal. I wish that on anybody at all. I don't wish that on nobody. I don't wish anyone ill will. I don't wish anyone to die. I'm just saying all this hypothetically. So it's a scary fucking situation how everything can crumble with the lack of food and water.
One of my cousins mentioned something interesting to me the other day, and I don't know if this is going on nationwide right now or not, but they happen to be on EBT here in Ohio, and they said that the benefits should have dropped like a week and a half ago, still haven't dropped yet.
Like dropped as in lower the amount, or cut off completely?
It's supposed to be technically like I think the way that they drop them is it's like the 1st and 15th of every month or whatever, depending on where you're at. They'll put like credit to your card or whatever.
And right, I get
still haven't done that. And it was supposed to be the day. It was supposed to be like the day of the election or day after the election is when it was supposed to happen or whatever. And
we call that a clue, ladies and gentlemen. We call that a clue.
And it reminds me very much of during Obama's administration when you had people have their shit cut off for like a week and a half or whatever it was. And yeah, what was the first thing you had a bunch of minorities do? Go to the fucking Walmarts and start stacking up cartfuls of groceries.
Yeah, we're gonna. Excuse me, sorry. If that continues to happen, I guarantee looting is going to start happening soon.
I remember reading something on Natural News. This is probably about 8 months ago or something now, at least that long. And they were predicting back then that we were going to start seeing food gangs and massive food theft going on. Before this time period in history. It was like summertime, early fall. So we're even past that now.
I think we might start seeing a few small things happen, you know, to the end of the year, but it's next year's when we're going to start seeing everything, quote unquote, you know, start falling apart.
Yeah.
It may even take going into the summertime. I don't think it'll quite take that long before we'll start seeing a bunch of shit happen. I think we could see it probably around February.
The dark winter.
Exactly. So shit's fixing to get really interesting, and it's gonna get very spicy.
Yeah. going back to our original topic today, which was the whole Law and Order syndrome thing, and that's one thing I think we saw quite a bit of in Kenosha, was you had a lack of law and order is what it was. And it's even these people that want to sit there and, try to claim that Rittenhouse was a murderer or whatever. I mean, hell, there's still people that claim that he shot 2 black people that night.
I was actually talking about that when you had dropped out with technical difficulties. I kind of started talking about that, yeah.
And my thinking is on everything like that, it basically goes back to that situation of when people don't respect a civilized society, you start seeing that thin veneer go away. And that's when you see real humanity start to kick in, I think, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, honestly, and I've said this several times on this channel before everything happened with everybody and since then, is I think one thing we saw since 2020 was a lot of people let their quote-unquote masks slip off. My thing was, during that time, I actually became even more of a constitutionalist, because at that point I really wasn't. I knew about the Constitution, I knew some people and stuff, and met some folks, and yeah, the one dude I met, he was full-blown constitutionalist, and he basically got me on board and, made me even more of that is what it was.
When people are put through hard times, their true colors will arise. Their true being, whether it's good or bad.
I'm not going to sit here and say that, at the time, if I had been a sitting governor, I might not have gone completely insane. Because, again, when you had the media, fear-mongering everybody in submission every day, and it was like, oh, it's so bad, so bad, so bad, and everything else like that. Like, I was freaking out for a little bit there. Honestly, I'm going to be honest with you.
Well, honestly, yes, I will agree with you on that. It was like the first month of the lockdown until my wife and I started, actually looking at shit. For like the first month and a half or so, it was a new thing, and the way they were fear mongering so hard and heavy, we went out and about, or she went to work, I went to the grocery store, whatever, masked up, everything, come back home, I'd, wash clothes that day that we wore, hand sanitize stuff. But after about a month or so of seeing how everything's going on and just listening to their bullshit, I quit wearing a mask. I was like, fuck it. I'm not wearing a mask anymore unless I'm absolutely have to. Like, say if I had to go to the doctor. That's like at Walmart, people would start, I had a few people in the beginning tell me to wear a mask, and no, I'm not. It's a mandated. There's no law. If there was a law, then there's a law, but there wasn't. So, of course, me being a big guy, most people just left me alone, didn't really say much to me. So, yeah, I quit wearing a mask unless I absolutely had to wear it to the doctor or go visit my mom before she died in the facility where she was. So,
I remember very early on, and this is before mandates even became a thing in this state, one of the guys I used to play Magic the Gathering with, I saw him walking around a Walmart, and he had on one of the N95s, and I just looked at him like, bro, what the fuck?
Dude, I saw people wearing respirators for a long time in the beginning. I would literally, I even saw someone wearing like almost like a makeshift hazmat suit.
Yeah.
So I seen some people wearing some crazy shit because they were so terrified. And by that point, like I said, probably after 2 months, I was like, I'm done with all this. If I get it, I get it. If it's my time to go, it's my time to go. I'm not going to live in fear. It's bullshit. I'm not going to die afraid. And honestly, it was like 2.5 years, close to 3 years before I finally even caught that crap. And it wasn't that bad.
Yeah, mine was, I'm trying to think now. It would have been last Christmas is when I finally got it. And I know for a fact that was it. And
I'm talking about, dude,
it actually was very bad, actually. I almost died. I'm not gonna say like died, but I was running like 104-degree fever like several days in a row where I had to put cold compresses on my head to break that fever.
Damn.
Yeah, it got bad, and then it was so that was like a couple days before Christmas is when that first kicked off, and I think that was legit corona for like a week or so, and then within like a week or two of that, it turned into bronchitis for like 3 to 4 weeks. So yeah, it turned into a bunch of different stuff.
And I didn't catch it. And I was going to like all kinds of stores. I had to go to the hospital a couple of times. I had to go to rehab nursing facilities, and I still didn't catch it. And when I did catch it, yeah, I would say the first 2 days really, they kind of sucked. I slept most of the time that I had it. The worst thing that I got was I lost my sense of smell and taste for like a month or so. But there was one aspect of it, like the first day or two, where my skin hurt. Now, I kind of think it was coupled with being sick and with one of my medications that I take for headaches, because I did have more headaches during being sick than normal. So I was taking my headache medication. And that alone has a side effect where it, for like a couple of minutes after taking it and it starts kicking in, my upper body, especially up shoulders up, will start kind of tensing up a little bit and start kind of hurting because of how the medication works. And so I think that was ultimately why my skin kind of hurt, was because of the medication. Like, it was to the point where even wearing a t-shirt was somewhat painful. So yeah, I mean, it could have been both together. It could have been just the medication, but that only lasted like 2 days. And then the rest of it, I was just in bed, sleeping. I slept for basically a week of having it.
Yeah, I remember when I had first caught everything, I was on a cast with some other people, and it was in the after chat that I was like bullshitting with people, and I'm like, yeah, I'm not really because I was feeling fine for like a long time, and then all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I'm not really feeling all that well. And then like within about 10 or 15 minutes of getting off with that, I'm just like, I just feel like really bad, like really, really sick. And to the point where it felt like I couldn't even get off the couch at that point because it felt like somebody was like beating me with a sack of potatoes.
Damn.
And like it would just like, it was like went from like nothing to like all of a sudden it's just like boom, like knock the wind out of you like 50 times or something like that. And yeah, then I ended up going to bed that night, and it was just like pure pain in my body and everything else like that, and checking my temperature, and it was like, because at first I didn't have a temperature, and then like I kept checking it, and like, yeah, all of a sudden it went to like, it's like above 90, 98 degrees, and then it was like 100 something degrees, and then it was like 103 degrees, and I'm just like, oh shit, that's not good. And
it's weird how illnesses, sicknesses, whatever you want to call it, affects different people. Some it may, kill them, or like you, make you feel like you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Like me, I'm kind of somewhere in between to less. And there's some people that just get it and just, walk it off in a day or so.
Yeah.
It's just weird how the body works. Not
well,
one
my
person
thing
is the
is
same.
too is that, being one of these people that is in that like class of like autoimmune issues and stuff like that. And that's when they were saying about, the jabs and shit like that. And I'm like, I'm not taking your fucking shit. Get the fuck out of here with that.
Well, that's like, how many people did they kill that were needing transplants?
A lot. Well, even
and
on top of that,
their immune systems were compromised because they were dying because they needed an organ transplant. But they were saying, oh, you can't have it unless you get the jab. And they're like, I can't because my immune system is compromised. That would kill me. Even doctors were saying that will kill them if they took the jab. So I don't know how many died, but I'm sure there's more than I care to count, honestly, that weren't allowed to have their transplants because they wouldn't get the jab.
Yeah.
And that's disgusting.
I remember actually after everything happened with the lockdowns and stuff, they were talking like months after that about how many people all of a sudden had cancer diagnoses. And it's all the stuff of like, oh yeah, we could have caught this, 6 months ago if we had done a routine fucking screening, but everything was shut down. So yeah, you now have stage 2 cancer of some kind.
Yep. Cancer has shot the fuck up since the lockdown.
Yeah.
And it's sad, honestly.
I forget what singer it was recently actually said she had colon cancer. It was one of the 80s like pop stars or something, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
I
can't
couldn't tell you. I hadn't heard that. Nothing
Yeah,
about
I
that.
can't remember. It's like I want to say Stevie Nicks, but I don't think that's who it was. It was somebody else, I believe. Yeah, I can't remember offhand. But yeah, she admitted it like a couple weeks ago is what it was, and I'm just like, well, interesting. And like for me, they as they say it's supposed to be your, I think like 40, 50, something like that is when you're supposed to get it, and it's like I would have died way before that because I was 31.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, found out I got to go have another colonoscopy one of these days soon because apparently it's been 5 years now. I swear I had one a couple years back, but maybe it was a scope for my throat is what it was that I'm thinking of. Now I'm thinking about it.
Endoscopy.
Yeah.
I've had a couple of those just because I have GERD.
Yeah, I got Barrett's esophagus, so yeah.
For the people out there that don't know what that is, it's gastrointestinal reflux disease. It's just basically bad heartburn.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
Barrett's
ulcers.
esophagus is where your lining doesn't go all the way down to your stomach.
Ooh.
There's like a little bit of a hang. Yeah. I've had some bad issues because of that. It was mostly acid reflux because of that is what it was. And yeah, they had to do some scopes and stuff. And they're like, oh, you need to be on these pills now. And I'm like, okay. And they put me on these pills and it seemed to clear it up mostly. I don't know. But yeah, then my MD told me when I was seeing him here on Halloween, he was like, yeah, it's been 5 years since you had a colonoscopy. And I was like, really? I thought it was only like 3. He's like, no, it's been 5. And so yeah, they got me scheduled for one early next year is what it is. So
well, get it done sooner than later.
Fun times.
Oh yeah, fun.
But nah, it's not gonna be. My thing is the scopes themselves don't bother me. It's all the prep work. I just don't like to drink that mixture that they give you, and it's so disgusting.
I bet. I haven't had it done yet, so
yeah,
I can't attest to it.
Well, for me, it's this giant gallon jug, and yeah, it just tastes like. It's almost like if you had left like milk out for like a day and then put it back in the fridge and let it get cold again. Like it just has that consistency taste to it, is what it is. Like it just doesn't taste good at all. It's very, very bad. And then you're in and out of the bathroom all day long, and yeah, it's not fun.
At that point, you might as well just camp out in the bathroom, stay on the toilet like Sergeant Murtaugh in Lethal Weapon.
Yeah, that's all well and good, and then you're unfortunately with me, my legs tend to fall asleep quite easily, so don't really want to be in that situation. But nah, I'm
not laughing at you or anything. Just the thought of that is just kind of funny.
No, I've never really had issues. It's just just the prep. Having to do the prep is just a pain, is what it is. And like I said, they haven't found anything bad in the last couple that they've done since that last one. So hopefully, 5 years long, they're not going to find anything else. If that be the case, and if they do, we'll deal with it as it comes then.
Yeah, and that's why I say get it taken care of sooner than later.
Yeah, well, their earliest one was until 2023. So.
Well, yeah, I know. I'm just saying, don't prolong it.
If I could get it now, I probably would, but unfortunately, I can't. So. But yeah, I think the real problem that we have with our society currently is that you have definitely a subset of people that just refuse to abide by law and order, is what it is. And I think when you look back at Kenosha and the Rittenhouse situation there, you had cowards to order very quickly, is what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I actually remember there was a video that came out, I think it was the day after Kyle's self-defense, and it was basically you had like 4 or 5 undercover cop cars just swarm this panel van out of nowhere that was at some gas station. It turned out it was like 6 or 7 Antifa guys trying to fill up gas cans to use as explosives that coming night is what it was going to be, and they had stopped him basically in the middle of doing stuff. So,
damn.
Yeah, and I forget, there was like several different videos of it I remember actually offhand. It was basically like different angles of people had shot and stuff, and it's like, yeah, get out of the fucking car, and like all the cops had like their guns drawn, and a couple of rifles were pulled and everything else like that. So it was some crazy shit for sure. Although,
correct me if I'm wrong, but has there been any riots or anything since the conviction of that psychopathic killer that mowed down people during the Waukesha parade?
the Waukesha Parade massacre. No, there has not been any riots over Daryl Brooks' piece of shit ass. Thankfully, at least as far as I know, there hasn't been anyway.
I'm shocked, honestly.
There was, I assume you heard about the UVA shootings there a couple weeks ago. The guy that capped a bunch of his teammates and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Apparently, I guess, and this is something I heard about the other day, there is a serial killer at the University of Idaho that was going around dorm rooms, like slitting people's throats and stuff like that.
Jesus.
And it kind of makes me think that we might be in that time that I was talking about on Honda's chat like a year ago with the Mexican Joker thing.
With the what?
Mexican Jokers.
Elaborate.
Let me see if I even have it on this. I don't know if I have it on this one or not. I was going to pull up the avatar. Oh, no, I don't have it on this one. The Beware of the Mexican Joker. There was a South Park episode years ago, and it was basically all these little migrant kids coming over, whatever, and it was supposed to be, I forget how they said it, was something about like Mexican Joker or whatever, and the gist of it was basically you creating something that you don't realize you're creating or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then it eventually like becomes its own thing. And that's when they were like, you had like these guys like fear mongering these little kids and stuff like that. And it was like, who is the Mexican Joker? Who is the Mexican Joker? And they were actually like creating like that person like 10, 15 years down the road is what it was out of these little kids. And I think that's kind of what we're seeing now is what it is in some aspects, because it's these people that have, you know, maybe they weren't totally there mentally before all this, and you know all the lockdowns finally got them to snap is what it was.
Well, we've seen a lot that happen since the lockdowns for sure. Maybe not to the extent what you're talking about. Well, but we've seen some people lose their shit over, you know.
Well, I think honestly, like we're still seeing like the after effects, and like this is like the beginning of what I think is going to happen. Because I think honestly, if we want to be serious about it, it's not going to be until probably 2026, 2030, somewhere in there, is when you're actually going to see like a lot of these young generation of kids start having full blown freakouts and going on rampages and stuff like that. And that's what I fear right now, honestly.
I can see it, but I'm not sure we'll make it that far as a country, to be honest, with all the shit going on.
I'm just saying in general though, but yeah, I think this is definitely like the very beginnings of it is what it is, because it's like, yeah, all of a sudden you just have like this dude at UVA, and then all of a sudden it's like a couple of days later it's some random dude at like the University of Idaho fucking killing people in their sleep and stuff like that. And it's like, Jesus. And it does make me wonder. It's like, are we going to see a new rise of serial killer in this country? I hope not.
Oh, that's almost a certainty, because being locked down and not forced to go, you know, being forced not to go anywhere, not even to the park to see your friends, you're isolated. I mean, that's naturally gonna make people snap. That's like, you know, form of torture is just holding someone down and letting a drop of water hit them on it. Will drive them crazy after a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a lot of unforeseen ramifications that we haven't seen yet from being forced to be locked down for so long. Well, I know Texas was one of the first states that started opening up first.
Yeah.
Not the first, but one, we were definitely one of the beginning ones to do it.
Well, I mean, South Dakota never even shut down. Good on Christine Nome on that one.
Yeah, good on her.
She was the. I feel like there was. I remember hearing talk. There was a second governor at the time. I never heard the name though, because I always heard it was Nome, and then there was like one other person that just never shut down or like barely shuttered their state is what it was, and I never heard the name of that particular governor. But like the other 48 states, 100% were shut down at some point for some amount of time. And yeah, the thing with Ohio was it took, and I mean, I was calling it out very early on. I'm like, no, you impeach DeWine, you take his powers away, everything else like that. And there was like 3 or 4 lawmakers here in our state house that were all, with the exception of one, because she was trying to run for state senate at the time, everybody else is going to be termed out of that chamber. And they were the only 3 or 4 that were willing to actually bring articles against him. Everybody else is like, no, we're not going to vote on this. And yeah, it was just a bunch of scumbaggery. And then it wasn't until 442 days in that they finally had the vote to strip him of his powers.
That was way too long.
And then it was about 8 or 9 days after that was when Dayton Mayor Nan Whaley, who was the bitch trying to run for governor here a little bit ago, was when she finally got sued for keeping Dayton under lockdowns even after that. And it was over 450 days at that point. And I'm just like, bro. And those were our choices for governor this year? Like, what the fuck? There was 4 or 5. This is what's fucked up. There was like 4 or 5 write-in candidates, and I'm like, bro, I don't care if they're write-ins or not. Put their damn names on the ballot, and we're going to get a new governor here.
Yeah, you'd think y'all, your population would have learned from that. You think any population that, like for the states that stay locked down the longest, and, California is still somewhat locked down and forced to wear masks and everything. You think they would have
LA
fucking
is
voted
trying to
differently?
implement mask mandates now.
Exactly. You think the population there would have, by now, in the re-election, voted differently to get those people out so they could be free, quote unquote free. You're still free. It's just whether you choose to fall in line or, go against the grain.
Well, Los Angeles recently voted in communist Karen Bass as their new mayor. So they'll never learn, man. They'll never learn.
No, sheep will always be sheep, apparently.
Although I find it very interesting, too, because even looking back at her, and this is something I remember hearing several months back, is about how during all the robbery stuff going on there in LA County and the surrounding areas and stuff like that, she had her house broken into and had some guns stolen.
I heard about that. Yep.
And then they caught the guys like 2 or 3 days later because, shocker, she was like sitting congresswoman at the time and was like, oh, well, gotta have my shit back now.
That's like when, hypocritical, but that's like with Newsom when they were, what's it called? What they did, the special assembly or whatever it was that they brought forth to try to oust him.
Oh, his recall?
Yeah, the recall. Thank you. I couldn't remember the name. The recall election.
Yeah.
You think they would have fucking got rid of him then, but no, they voted him right back in.
Well, I mean,
I don't know if there was,
there's
any
technicalities on that, and there's definitely some fuckery going on there. And there has been since then. It's the same exact thing with Whitmer in Michigan. There were at least 2 different times that Jacqueline Benson, who was the Secretary of State then, I think she still is actually after this election cycle here, she should have taken the articles of impeachment against Whitmer, and she refused to do her job, and she should be removed from office right then, based on that.
Do you think of any of these hardcore Democratic states like California, Illinois, New York?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they'll ever turn red?
So Zeldin came close in New York this go around. If it, like, here's the thing, and this is something I talked about the other day with city states in this country. If it was not for New York City, New York State would be red. That's just how it is. It's because the population density in New York City is so fucking big that they just offset everything. It's like the same exact thing with Chicago. You had what we were talking about the other day with Leo and Van Drake in the back chat. I don't know if you were there or not that night.
No, I don't think I was.
Okay, so Sunday night I was talking with Leo and Van Drake in Honda's back chat, and we were talking about Illinois and Fritzner, whatever that guy's name is, JB, getting back in office. I think it was Vandrick was the one who looked it up, and he said the only counties that went blue were whatever the hell a county that Chicago exists in there, and then there was like a light blue one in like some other like major city area there in Illinois, and everything else was red across the board. And it was because of population density in Chicago that JB got back in office. And that's a huge issue when you look at all that stuff. And that's what I'm kind of fearful about here in Ohio right now, because we have like 7 to 8 major cities in our state right now, obviously being Columbus, Cincinnati, Cleveland, Dayton, Toledo, Akron, Canton, and technically Youngstown would also be blue. And actually there was, I'm trying to think, there was a county where Al Snow grew up at, and I can't remember what it's called now, but that's also very blue as well in that area. But anyway, the thing is, when you look at our numbers, though, it's still, because of rural areas and stuff like that, it's still basically a 2 or almost 3 to 1 margin, red to blue, or like some independent here and there is what it is. And the thing is, when they start getting more and more people in these, especially with like Intel plants coming in now, and I guess we're making like a lot of EV batteries and cars and stuff here now as well with one of these investments.
Yeah.
You're going to have a lot more people start going into the state of Ohio right now in the major cities pretty soon, I think in the next year or two. And I think they're going to bring their leftist bullshit with them. And I'm not okay with that, is what it is.
Well, see, I feared that about all these fucking transplanters coming from California and everywhere else coming to Texas. I mean, we already have a bad problem because, you know, Austin's our capital, and that bitch is blue down there. That's like little California, in my opinion. I wish we could just pluck that bitch up and throw it to California. But, you know, we got Austin and Dallas and Houston. They're blue. And then you got some in Fort Worth and then El Paso. Of course, you know, El Paso being right there, you know, bordering New Mexico and Mexico. So I'm scared the more people that come in here bringing their bullshit that they're escaping from their state that they left, instead of assimilating to everything in your new state, they bring their bullshit with them. And I'm afraid one day Texas is going to go blue, and that's going to be a scary fucking day.
So I've talked about this ad nauseum quite a bit. And like, I know people would say like, oh my God, you're totally against voting rights and stuff like that. And that's not how it is at all. I'm for voting rights. I'm just not for people wanting to be locust mentality is what it is. And I don't know how constitutional this would be if we actually implemented it in this country, but basically it would be a situation where if you're going to come into a state, you essentially have no voting rights for a decade. Like if you're going to move from like some leftist area into a red state, like you just don't have voting rights for that next 10 years. And it would be based on the fact that it would give us enough time as the actual people that live in this state to, I don't want to say fortify, but basically, you know, essentially save ourselves and implement stuff into place that is like, no, we're not going to allow this crap to be a thing. Or we're going to solidify like, this is how our things are in the constitution of our state now when it comes to like Second Amendment and everything else for that matter.
I don't know if I necessarily agree with that.
Yeah, I mean,
but,
again, it's just
I do wish people would learn, because it should be obvious. You know, if you're escaping like California or Chicago or New York because of how bad it is and how the laws are just totally against the population, instead of bringing your ideology or your political bullshit that you're escaping from, that you've been so used to another state, why not go there and maybe open your eyes to something that could be better? I'm not saying totally discount what you believe, but, and I'm not saying fully assimilate and you have to bow down to whatever political aisle is in the new state you're moving to. But just open your eyes to something that could be better from which you came.
Well, I think
try to meld the two together in some degree or another. Just don't fucking bring your shit and try to expect a new state to kowtow to you.
I think a lot of the problem with people in general is that, and I hate to say it, like, we live in a society of fucking morons. I'm just gonna say it like it is. Like, it hurts my head.
That's been done by design.
It hurts my head to think that I spent at least like 7 hours this election cycle trying to figure out like who is the best candidates in all these races, and then you just have a bunch of morons coming here that do no research at all, take no time out of their thing, believe whatever the fucking attack ads tell them, and vote against these people is what it is.
Well, that's like I firmly believe that Trump would have won 2020 had it not been for the media spreading so much misinformation and so much lies and bullshit. I think that was a detriment. And not only that, I think there was other things that attributed to it.
There was a congressional district here in Ohio, District 13, and it mostly takes up Akron. It's Summit County there, but it's also part of Stark County. And it was Amelia Sykes, who's a current state rep here. She is a scumbag. She's a piece of shit. She's a black supremacist. She was going up against Madison Gilbert, who is, I believe she was a Miss USA winner or pageant winner of some kind. And then she did some other stuff. And she was basically like a Woman for Trump person or whatever. There was so many attack ads that were put out against Madison that were completely falsehoods and lies. And the worst part of it was there was one where they're like, oh, she believes in everything, even incest and rape and people having kids based on incest and rape and stuff like that. And it literally was like them then showing like her actual interview where she talked about the stuff. And she was like, no, it should be a states' rights issue. Like, that's what she was saying legitimately.
Mm-hmm.
But people don't have the wherewithal to understand that. And then Amelia only supposedly won that district by like 1,000 votes or something. And Madison conceded. I'm like, no, don't fucking concede. Demand a damn hand recount. Like, this is bullshit.
Yeah, I saw something about that with Lauren Boebert. That her opponent
guy finally conceded to her right before the hand recount.
He said he didn't think that there'd be enough votes to overturn it if they did a revote.
Kerry Lake is finally fighting in Arizona, thank God. Blake Masters has got off his ass and do the same, honestly.
Do you think Kerry Lake stands a chance if they do a recount?
She fucking won. There is no way that Katie Hobbs didn't cheat that fucking race. And I would say the same exact thing with Mark Kelly's ass. And I would say going to Nevada, same thing with that Adam Laxalt guy. He got fucked over. And there are several other states as well that they're trying to screw the U.S. Senate on there is what it is. There ain't no way that Shapiro and Fetterman won Pennsylvania legitimately either.
I don't even see how they could even consider that dude a candidate. I mean, he had a pretty substantial stroke.
Oh, he's having micro strokes since then.
I know, but what I'm saying is I don't see how he can be considered a serious candidate, much less win when his health isn't allowing him to be a top runner. That should be a disqualification. If you had any kind of serious health concerns, you shouldn't be allowed to run for any political office ever.
Which goes back to the 20th Amendment that I was bringing up before many, many times. And it's not only age limits, health limits, term limits. It should be auto DQs at this point. If you were like my thing of it is, if you were already in office and you're pushing gun control, you're gone. That's it. You're done here.
If you're
the same exact thing if you were running on that platform because you were directly breaking an oath that you would take to uphold the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that we're not demanding that is ridiculous.
I agree.
And I think that's where I think that's what balkanization is going to happen in this country honestly very soon.
Because I don't understand how I don't understand how Biden was allowed to run for presidency when he legitimately had a portion of his brain removed.
Well, it's the exact same thing with him being in the U.S. Senate after that too.
That's my point. I don't understand how he was allowed to stay in office as a senator, much less run for presidency, when he's not all there. Literally, he's not all there in the head. Literally and figuratively.
Yeah.
So It's a bunch of bullshit. It's fuckery, as you said.
Well, and that's the thing, and this is why I seriously, to the point of them, and I've been saying this all over Facebook and a bunch of other social media sites for the past month or two now. We need to stop looking at federal government as legitimate at this point. It's like, you are not legitimate. We take it back to states' rights and be done with it.
Mm-hmm. 500 Magnum. I would agree with your comment. Sorry, Ohio. Yeah,
it's fine. But no, like, that's the whole point, though, is you have like so much fucking bullshit, and then not only that, but you look at like who is the majority of people still holding power in this country, and it's between silent generation and baby boomer generation.
Yeah,
that make up most of Congress and Senate. Now, granted, there's other people now, like your Boberts or your MTGs or Cortezes or whatever the case be, that are, millennials, Gen X, whatever. But like, they're few and far between.
That's why I wish Trump would have done what he said he was going to do and drain the swamp and get rid of all these motherfuckers while he was still in it.
I'm going to say it like it is. The worst thing he ever did was ever allow Biden to assume power. He should have declared an insurrection act on January 20th and been done with it. Now, granted, would this country be even more fucked now than we're looking at right now? Maybe. But at least then we would have still been a constitutional republic. You would have definitely seen a fracture of this country happen during that, but at least it would have been better than it is now, I think. Because instead we're going on this weird fucked up slow burn of just like death by 1,000 cuts kind of shit, I think, honestly.
Definitely not heading in a good direction. Let's say that.
No, I see us heading into a very, very bad direction.
Like I said earlier, I think, by the end of next year, we're going to be in a full-blown depression. That would make the first one look like Child's Play.
The big difference is that in our, relatives, ancestors and stuff like that, and their original Great Depression there, they knew shit. They knew how to can, they knew how to prepare their own food, they knew how to, supplement themselves and stuff like that, live off the land, everything else like that. How many people don't know how to do that now? A lot. And that's stuff that's been lost to generational stuff.
Yep, billions of people don't know how to do that.
And that's why
they don't even know how to go hunt.
Cannibalism. When I talk, I people joke when I've said Cannibal Monday before, dude, but I think that's truth, honestly, at this point.
There would be a lot of people. It'll be like that couple in that documentary, Book of Eli. Would just act like they're good people and trap you in there and just turn you into food.
Mm-hmm. And the thing about that is, it's like, I think, unfortunately, a lot of it would be unintentional cannibalism, because it would be people trying to go out there and have 100 people go out and hunt at once or whatever, and just inadvertently shoot each other in some cases. It's like, well, here's some meat.
I can kind of understand this. This goes to the comment that 500 Magnum just did. I can kind of understand Trump, but why don't you trust DeSantis? Because he said, I don't like or trust DeSantis or Trump either, but I'd rather have them than Biden.
See, and that's my thing. Like, I was actually on Team DeSantis for about 10 minutes, and then it was something Matt brought up the other day about him, being like, oh, let's go around the federal government and jab everybody in Florida. And I'm like, you motherfucker, I forgot that even happened.
Oh, shit, I forgot that happened too.
And that's what I was thinking back in those days, because I'm like, when you look at all these governors that shut down stuff, like, why are we not having Nuremberg trials at this point? Why are they not being tried with crimes against humanity already? Especially Cuomo and Hunkel.
Beginning this year.
Cuomo and Hunkel, both of them in New York, man, they should be at the top of the fucking list.
Yeah.
They mass murdered a shit ton of people. Like, we're talking about millions in that state alone. Here in Ohio, you had under DeWine's governorship back in between March and May of 2020, you had then Health Director Amy Acton, who was an Obama appointee at one point, who then became Health Director of Ohio. She is a Democrat, and she became de facto governor for 2 months, declaring abortion an essential business. It was never brought up on any kind of charges of mass murdering of the unborn.
Yeah. I agree with you, 500. All politicians are against you. And I said that earlier when Ohio had technical difficulties and dropped out. They're only there for their bottom line, for their pocketbooks. That's all that any politician cares about. That they may placate to one side or the other, but at the end of the day, like Honda said before, they're like WWE players. They're all against each other out in the open, but behind closed doors, they're all buddy and conspiring with one another how they can fatten their pocketbooks and fuck over the American people, because they don't give a shit about us. They just give a shit about money and power.
Yeah.
And control, which is, same thing.
So the thing about Florida constitutional carry, now that we're on the subject here with that last comment, DeSantis actually gave them a special session for that this past go around. The problem was, and it was partially him, that he wasn't pushing for it hard enough, but it was also a state senator there. I forget what the guy's name was. He was the one tossing out petitions from like the GOA people in Florida there. And it would have been his committee that it would have gone to, and it never even got to his committee is what it was, because you refused to take it up to committee is what it is then.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of rhinos in their state house is what it is there, and I hope they got voted out this go around.
I hope so too.
I think that's the problem people don't realize. Like, you need to pay attention to state politics at this point, 100%. You need to know who the fuck is in your state house and how corrupt as shit they actually are. Because it's even like I was saying last week on Honda's chat when it was just three of us there. And yeah, you have Ohio right now. Come next General Assembly, we have a 2/3 majority, 68 right now, of 99. And are they going to kick out Democrats? Fuck no, because half of them are rhino sacks of shit that don't give a fuck.
Yeah, and kind of what I was alluding to earlier, but the topic kind of changed and I forgot to finish my point.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing I was saying, how it scares me that one day Texas could be blue is because honestly, how many states look to Texas? How many states typically fall in line after Texas does something? That's why I don't understand why Florida still doesn't have constitutional carry, because now that Texas does. Yeah. But if Texas ever turns blue, how many other states would fucking fall once Texas falls? You know what I mean? Because we are the second largest state in the United States, and we're such a big I don't know how to phrase it properly, but like I said, other states look to us for a lot of things. And if we fall, how many will fall?
Yeah. Well,
does that make sense?
Yeah, and it's just like the same thing, that one video I threw on NEA's Discord last night, where it was them talking about us drawing maps again here in Ohio. And it was Bill Seitz, who is the current House Majority Leader, I think that's what it is his role, because he's like third in line to the speakership or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it was him, and it was Allison Russo, who I actually have a picture of her here that I'm going to grab up real quick. This fucking scally cunt right there. God, I fucking hate her guts so much, dude. She is a fucking scumbag. I really wish they would arrest her ass already and be done with it. But
it looks crazy in that picture.
She was legit like yelling at people in that picture from like 3 or 4 years ago is what it was. But yeah, it's her. And then this is a picture right here of Bill Seitz, who he's definitely a rhino sack of shit too. He was the one that actually, when we had constitutional carry on the state house side, there was an amendment in it that would have allowed for any weapons to be carried constitutionally. And he's like, no, that's the Antifa amendment. We got to rip that out of there. And they did. So, sucks. Now, granted, that particular version of constitutional carry was not what passed. It was the Senate side that actually passed their side. But that's besides the point. Is he basically turned what was a great piece of legislation into a watered down version of it unnecessarily. And the big thing was, though, he was talking about Ohio the other day, because you had Allison Russo bitching and moaning about like, oh, this is why we need to have more free and fair maps, and Democrats need to hold more power in the state house, and the GOP needs to hold less power in the state house. And Seitz is like, no, girl, you saw from the governorship on down, every state race go red. Like, he's like, there's a reason for that, because people want the red side, and power is what it is here. Mm-hmm. And he's right about that. And kind of, Because the thing is, it's not that he's totally right about it. He's partially right about it. When you give us the illusion of choice in the coin flip, it's either you pick some like semi-law and order Republican or some psychotic lunatic Democrat. And it's like, that's not really a choice, man. It's like you let the inmates run the asylum, or you actually have like people that technically won't fuck you right now, but maybe down the line they will.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and going to what Magnum 500 Magnum is saying, Kemp beat Stacy in Georgia, and hopefully Walker will beat Warlock too. My thing is Stacy even gonna acknowledge that she lost again, because she still hasn't conceded from the first time she lost?
She conceded the race this time around.
Did
conceded
she?
She lost 2022 after
Wow.
pissing away $105 million worth of people's money, of course.
Yeah.
Which is just insane. The problem I have with those races in Georgia, though, is when you look at Kemp versus Abrams and you look at Walker versus Warnock, they should have both been called at this point. You should have never had a runoff for that Senate race. And that's why you look at the fuckery. And it's the same fuckery that got Warnock into office to begin with. The same thing with John Ossoff.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why every single piece of legislation those guys' names are on at this point should be looked at as null and void.
Georgia doesn't have constitutional carry yet, does it?
They did. They do.
They do?
Yeah. So okay, Ohio, technically, we should have been 22 and 22. And then that scumbag motherfucker Brian Kemp walked up in there and was like, we're going to pass it immediately. Ha ha. And they beat us to the punch. And they became 22 and 22. And then it was legit like 3 or 4 days later is when DeWine finally signed ours. And then it was like a couple months later is when it actually went into effect.
Yeah, I was going to say, y'all are now constitutional carry. And what are we at, like 25 or 26 states now?
We are, I'm trying to think now. I know Indiana was 24. I think technically Alabama is 25th on January 1st. And then it goes down to the thing. And that's another thing, too, because I have to redo my entire thing because of that now. Because technically, the only way that Pennsylvania was going to be that way is if you had Mastriano getting placed there. Of course, Shapiro scumbagged him out of the governorship. So they're never getting
I think some fortification went on there.
100%
for sure.
did. 100% did.
But my point was, if we're at 25 once Alabama goes through January 1st,
yes,
we are literally half the states now have constitutional carry. That's a huge fucking big deal, dude.
Yes. Especially when you look back, it was about 10, 12 years ago, and there was only like 5 or 6 then. It took wildfire, dude. It went off like wildfire in the last 3 or 5 years now.
Yeah, and my thing is, honestly, after Alabama, I don't know of any other states that even have constitutional carry on their docket or in the process of passing it.
You would have a few that could put it back into place right now. And I talked about this before. Nebraska should have gone this year. The only reason that they didn't is because of the fact that, again, just like Florida, they only have like 80, 90 days, whatever it is, in their General Assembly for like to do everything. And the problem with Nebraska was because of all the shit that happened in 2020 and all the COVID fucking legislation they had to throw through is what it was. It got pushed to the back burner to the point where you had Sandhills Media and all those guys like that go down there, and we're trying to get it passed through. And I forget who the current governor of Nebraska is. I want to say Pete Ricketts, but I could be wrong about that one. He specifically said he wasn't going to do a special session this year because it would have gone right now when it was football season, and they would have never gone.
Fuck football.
And well, college football, and that basically pays for a lot of their fucking states, what it is anyway.
True, I know. Nebraska is a huge fucking, even with like baseball, because they have the College World Series there for baseball.
But yeah,
anyways, go ahead.
He specifically said like they're not going to special session because of that or whatever. They'll just do it next year is what it is. The guy who was behind it, I forget what his name is offhand, but he was I want to say he was a state senator there, and he was the one pushing for it quite a bit actually. And there was, oh god, I can't remember the fucking girl. I need to go back to some of the videos I privated after everything happened, because there was one girl I did an Oathbreakers on from Nebraska. She is a fucking psychotic lunatic. So this chick, how the hell she ever got into office is beyond me at this point. She is basically the Nebraska version of AOC. And she's totally anti-gun, totally anti-life. Just a complete whack job. and she was basically bitching and moaning. She was trying to call the pro-gun people at the state house there in Nebraska during the constitutional carry hearings earlier this year a bunch of white hate. And it's like, you realize there's like 15 minorities up here, right? That are all part of this 2A group. And yeah, there was a bunch of those people that were going after her ass on that one. But she, the guy that introduced constitutional carry there, he said he's going to do it again this coming General Assembly. And I think Nebraska is probably going to be the first to fall in 2023 is what it is.
Only time will tell.
In fall. The thing is, do
you think if... go ahead.
As I've said with Pennsylvania, theirs is off the table now because of fucking everything going on there. The same thing, I think, with Wisconsin. They had a chance because Tony Evers got reelected there, though. I think theirs is kind of I don't know, because that's the thing. I need to go look to their General Assembly again because I know that it got a lot more red in this election cycle. So it could be something where they can override his veto there if they want to do that. And if that be the case, there's a possibility of them getting it based on that then and becoming like 27. Louisiana has a governor's race coming up next year, and it would be after John Bell Edwards is termed out here and you have a new person getting in there. If they can flip that red and get rid of some of the rhinos that fucked them over to begin with, the first go around is what it was when they should have been 22 and 21, they can definitely get it there. So that would be 28 potentially. Florida, again, it depends. I think if DeSantis is going to try to do a real run for the presidency, he has to pass constitutional carry there to get the votes.
Yeah, I think if he got it passed,
he has to do that, and he has to get rid of red flag laws as well. He has to get rid of red flag laws as well. He must reform that shit. And I would say the same thing, honestly, going to Indiana now, because that's the weird thing with Indiana. They've had a red flag law in their books for 5-7 years, whatever it is, and they now got constitutional carry. And it's like you have one piece of pro-2A legislation and one piece of anti-gun legislation. Like, get rid of the anti-gun legislation, we're going to be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that could be something that people do bring up next General Assembly for them, starting in 2023 here with their next whatever it is, 100.
They need to, because it's stupid to have constitutional carry, but yet you have anti-gun law.
Yeah, exactly.
As far as red flag, that goes highly against the Constitution of the United States.
It breaks everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be a big thing for them to deal with, is what it is, and that would be Indiana's Pro 2A groups getting off their asses and doing something there to get that through. And then you have I'm trying to think now. So let's see. So that would be.
Do you honestly think DeSantis and Florida will pass constitutional carry this year? This coming year? It depends.
I think again, I really think it has to do with their General Assembly makeup right now. If they were able to oust some of the rhinos that were keeping it held up, they could get it, I think, honestly. Will he sign? Maybe, maybe not. The thing is,
I think if it made it to his desk at the end of the day, I think he would, just because, typically, like I was saying earlier, Florida usually falls in line with Texas. Whatever Texas does, Florida tends to do.
Well, the big thing here was,
because Texas is like a giant beacon for most of the other states.
Between the time that Ohio had ours introduced to passed, it was like 356 days that it took us to get there.
Yeah.
I could easily see it being something like that with Florida too. And the big thing is, will they have that long to do it, is what it is, because they'd also pass other stuff or undo other stuff and stuff like that. And the big thing is, there was a lot of Democrats in the state of Florida, and this is something I noticed when I was actually paying attention to constitutional carry about 7-8 months ago now, is actually, it was longer than that. It was probably in 2021, actually, where you had a lot of shit being sent in there by the Democrat Party in the Florida House of Representatives, to where they were trying to push a bunch of anti-gun stuff in place then for like security guards and force everybody to have like certificates and everything else like that for different stuff. And yeah, they were definitely trying to do a lot of fuckery. Then, of course, in that special session, they were trying to revive that up, is what it was. And you also had DeSantis specifically say about constitutional carry, and they were trying to get to that and everything like that. They didn't really get to anything, is what it was. And thankfully, no anti-gun shit passed, but no pro-gun stuff passed either.
Right.
So it was kind of a wash on that. Now, granted, that being said, they did get a lot of other stuff done during that special session, which was good for the state of Florida. And I think right now it really depends on exactly where they want to go with it here in the next year. Because I forget exactly, because theirs is a weird one. It's supposed to be like every other year their session changes. And I think this coming go around, it's like a 3-month session from like January to March or something, if I'm not mistaken, for like 90 days. I want to say that's how it goes. And then
That's weird.
2024 would be the other way. It's like
Yeah.
like April to June or something. Yeah, it's really odd. It's really odd, especially when you look at the state of Ohio, because ours is all year round. They just take a month or two break here, is what it is, every so often. That's what we're going to right now. Actually, we're in the lame duck session between now and Christmas, or actually, it's now and Thanksgiving, and then we're coming after Thanksgiving back through until like the 21st or something.
Yeah.
And that's that one video I threw out the other day where Allison Russo was bitching and moaning about map redistricting and stuff like that. She's like, "Oh yeah, this lame duck session, and you're gonna pass stuff in the middle of the night." And it's like they wouldn't have had to if you didn't fucking hold up our redistricting stuff for 8 months, bitch. She did, seriously. Like she fucking, it was like her and Vernon Sykes, who was a state senator, and Amelia Sykes' father, by the way, the chick that got District 13 there for Congress. That family, by the way, has held that district for like 35 years or something. It's insane. Yeah, that's a lot of fucking legacy shit going on there, but that's a lot of corruption besides the point. But anyway, but yeah, she what was I gonna say? Russo basically was bitching and moaning. She was the one of the Democrats on the committee is what it was for their district maps and stuff like that. And then you have mainstream media here being like, "Oh, but the Supreme Court ruled them unconstitutional." And it's like, no, the state Supreme Court did not rule them unconstitutional. Retiring Judge Maureen O'Connor, who's going to be out of office at the end of the year, who is a rhino, and then 3 Democrats who should have been kicked out already are the ones that ruled on them. Everybody else is like, no, this is bullshit. It's totally constitutional. So I think it'll be interesting to see what happens with that even, because I think we're definitely going to have a new set of maps with a new, I want to say it's sometime in like March or May of next year is when we're going to have a new Supreme Court judge come into our state Supreme Court then for O'Connor's seat. So that'll be interesting to see what happens there. And hopefully it'll go red too as well. That was when we were coming back the other day, when my mom and I were coming back the other day from an appointment. I looked at the one sign that was up, and it still had that Zayas woman that was trying to go up against one of the Republicans that won. And I'm like, oh, are they just going to run her again for this election next year, and they're just going to keep that billboard up till then? It wouldn't surprise me. So, but yeah, anyway.
To 500 Magnum's comment, yes, red flag laws, all it does is get people killed. I will agree with that because there's been many people that have already died due to red flag laws. And he asked, what are y'all carrying today? He carries a Taurus 856 Ultralight and 38 Special. I generally carry my Glock 21.
I always carry my Taurus G2C because that's the only centerfire handgun I own currently, unfortunately, because of money. But
yeah.
And if I had the money, if I had gotten the money from those coins and stuff, I would have definitely had a G3C by now, but I don't have that, unfortunately, yet. So, hoping for Christmas time, maybe.
And I don't know much about old Chip Ahoy, but he said, too bad Chip Roy wasn't president. Our 2A would be protected, hopefully.
Dude, that guy is a fucking trip. He's one of the Texas congressmen. Or I should say congressman from Texas.
Yeah, I don't know much about him now.
Yeah, I forget what thing it is. He was one of the ones during oh God, what was it they were voting on? It was when Nadler's bitch ass was trying to do all that crap after Uvalde.
Yeah.
And Chip Roy came out here and was like, "Nah, man, this is how it really is." And I think it was actually before that even they were like trying to pass other gun. It was like the Violence Against Women Act. They were trying to push gun control into or whatever. And Chip was like, "Nah, this is how the Second Amendment actually is, and y'all are infringing upon it, you oath breakers," and stuff like that. And yeah, he's
him. Okay.
Interesting dude. Yeah, he's a pretty interesting. There was one chick actually during that, and that's again going back to the foreign national not holding power in this country kind of thing versus some should maybe. There was one chick, I forget what her name is, and I forget where she's a congresswoman from, but she was on that committee too, and she's actually pretty hot. I can't remember what her name was offhand though, but yeah, she basically was calling him out too on that one. And I forget, it was like some Russian country or Kyrgyzstan or something like that or whatever. But yeah, it was like some Eastern European nation or whatever she originally came from or whatever. She's like, I can't remember what it was. It was maybe like one of the old USSR bloc of countries or whatever then.
Okay.
And she was like, "Yeah, my family and I escaped this tyranny to come here. Why are you trying to put us under tyranny again here?"
Yeah.
And like went on this like whole tirade and stuff. And I'm like, and these are the kind of people I wish could actually run for the presidency and stuff or vice presidency, but they can't because they weren't American born, is what it is. So yeah, it's just sad. But yeah, I wish that Jim Jordan would become Speaker of the House this next go around, but I don't think that's going to happen, unfortunately.
He's like I was going to ask, who do you think is going to be, since the Republicans took the House, who do you think is going to likely be the
fucking
new
Kevin
speaker?
McCarthy. It's going to be Kevin McCarthy. It's always going to be a California piece of shit.
I hope not.
I think it's almost guaranteed it's Kevin McCarthy, because I was reading something the other day and they were talking about him and McConnell both getting like the votes or whatever to get like leadership roles again or something. So
fucking Mitch the bitch McConnell. I hate that son of a bitch.
That dude is one of the like that. There is no way that guy's not tied to China at this point just through his wife alone. Because his wife has a bunch of ties to China, is what it is. Through like business deals and shit like that. And I'm just like how the fuck are you still holding office?
I don't see how Swalwell is not fucking gone.
It's insane, man. Honestly, I really like this is what I wish would happen to our country if we were going to stay a constitutional republic of 50 states. You have every state get 5 seats in the House of Reps. And that's maximum.
Yeah.
There is no need for California to have 50 something at this point. There is no need for places like Montana to have 1. And you know, like that would mean Ohio getting rid of 10, honestly. And it's like, I'm fine with that because most of them are Democrat held anyway at this point. Or they're like rhinos and stuff. And it's like the only good one is Jim Jordan, honestly. Everybody else can eat a dick. Actually, no, sorry. Mike Carey, he was a Trump back guy, got in there in a special election, ironically enough, against Allison Russo last year. And again, this is something I talked to my state rep about. I'm like, why is she still in our state house, dude? Why wasn't she booted out based on the fact she's running for special elections and stuff at that point? And he's like, honestly, yeah, it is.
And I know this is probably not a popular idea, but hypothetically, and I wish they would bring back tar and feather, because they used to tar and feather politicians that basically went against the people's wishes and, you know, was only out for their own self-interest and everything. They'd pull them out of their house or whatever and tar and feather them in the streets. If that were to be again, that would fucking solidify that they would be be constitutional politicians. They would honor the Constitution of the United States, because the Constitution is the law of the land.
The whole term in of itself, politician, is a misnomer because they're supposed to be civil servants, is what it is. And that's what we need to make them again. It's like, no, you're a civil servant. You're indebted to the people. You represent us as a voting bloc. That's why we made you our representative.
Yep.
Listen to us or get the fuck out. And I think that's the problem right now, is so many of them are like, no, I'm your boss. And it's like, no, you're not. We are your boss.
And so many people have been brainwashed over the generations and don't realize that we are the power. We have the power. They are just there because we put them there. And if they fall out of line, it's our responsibility, our duty to put them back in line or get them the fuck out of there and put someone in there that will represent the people. And and people just they've forgotten that or don't care to know it. They just rather be fat and happy as long as they have their food, their entertainment, whatever that may be, and there's to be safe. That's all they care about. Just that they don't know what it means to fight anymore in the proper way.
And this is also another reason why I would love to see deprivation of rights under color of law becoming a felony nationwide.
Yeah. Get rid of fucking qualified immunity. There should be no reason whatsoever that they should have qualified immunity.
Well, the thing with deprivation of rights being a felony is it would allow citizens arrest to be a thing then.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the problem right now, is you have so many of these people committing, various misdemeanor crimes in office, but nobody's calling them out on it because they're misdemeanors. No law enforcement in this country doing anything about it because, again, it's a bunch of misdemeanors, not felonies. Where if it was felonies, it would basically force their hands and be like, no, you're doing it or we're doing it. Make a fucking choice.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I think there's a lot of accountability at all levels right now, whether it be state, local, or federal government at this point, that they don't want to actually play by the rules anymore.
Yeah.
If they ever
I agree with you.
At all.
I agree with you, 500 Magnum. He said politicians are vampires living off the blood of our blood, and the only power they have is the power we give them. Exactly.
I like to do the One Ring kind of thing, actually, especially with Pelosi and them, because if you look at her, all these people like her, being that silent generation and stuff like that, they realize like once they let go of that ring of power, they have nothing. They're just old people. And I think that's the problem right now. They realize their days are numbered physically on this earth. And they never give up
She
power.
looks like she's a severe alcoholic.
I'm surprised she hasn't been diagnosed with cirrhosis of the liver at this point, honestly.
Exactly.
Maybe she has been. She just has liver transplants all the time is what it is.
Maybe. Because she always looks hammered.
Yeah.
While her husband got hammered.
I was watching some of her speech the other day where she was talking about not being speaker anymore, and it's like, are you drunk and high both? Like, goddamn, lady.
I wouldn't doubt it.
It's like, fuck.
Probably the only way she's able to function. I wouldn't doubt it if she's on like 50 different fucking medications.
Yeah. I know for a fact Dianne Feinstein's on dementia meds at this point.
Oh, hell, do you remember that report that got leaked not too long ago showing how many fucking people in political offices that are on dementia medications?
I don't know exactly how many it was.
I don't remember how many it was either, but it was more than one. It was literally more than one, and one is too many.
Yeah. Well, that's just it. And again, that goes back to 20th Amendment of auto decuse is what it is. If you're not mentally there, get the fuck out.
Fucking 500 Magnum. Yeah. She hammered her way right out of office. It's hammer time. Yep.
She just needs her parachute pants now to land safely.
Oh my god. The memes that came out that are still coming from that is just oh my god.
They showed the footage the other day too, where they showed it was Paul Pelosi opening the door apparently.
Do what?
They showed the footage from the cops' body cams or whatever the other day, and it was apparently Paul Pelosi opening the door for them, and then walking back in and getting smacked in the head with a hammer. Apparently, after that, it's like, interesting.
Have we heard any more about his condition after that?
No, as far as I know, he just got released from the hospital, is what it was at some point, and has been back home for X amount of days now or whatever. But they're keeping it under wraps pretty well, so.
Yeah,
that's nail up the curtains and everything else like that,
Mm-hmm. That's the thing, 500. There should be an age limit for any kind of political office. Once you hit that age, you're not allowed to run again, and yeah, you shouldn't be able to run after a certain age. And I think it should be honestly about 60.
I would give them 70. But even
then, 70 is way too old.
A cognitive test.
I don't even agree with. I mean, I agree with the cognitive test.
65 maybe.
Maybe, but personally, I think 60 would be the ideal age, just because a lot of health problems like that start presenting itself after 60. Whether it's Alzheimer's, dementia, whatever, it's just you're getting fucking old. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you should not be allowed to hold any kind of political office if you aren't well enough to, like Fetterman or Biden.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a lot.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg. My God, how old was she when she finally died in office?
80s, 90s, somewhere in there.
And she looked like she was fucking the Crypt Keeper.
Yeah.
And then Dianne Feinstein, who is on Alzheimer dementia medications, she literally can,
like 92, 93, something like that.
She cannot remember a meeting that she had an hour ago, 5 minutes ago. Her aides are constantly telling her what everything's going on.
I remember hearing a story of Feinstein. This is about probably a year ago now. And it was, I forget who the congressman was who was talking. I remember it was a senator, actually. Might have been Richard Blumenthal or like, who's that other asshole from Connecticut? It looks like a pedophile. Chris Murphy. That's who it is. I think it was Chris Murphy was having a conversation with her or whatever about some stuff about gun control crap or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I had to introduce myself to her again and again, like about 15 different times during this 45-minute meeting. And I'm just like, bro, you know she's fucked in the head. Remove her from office. You're a piece of shit elder abuser.
Exactly. And who's actually running her position? Everybody.
It's all the aides. It's all the aides. Yeah. And the sad part about it is, before her husband died a couple years ago, she was still all there. It was after his death, though, she just went downhill immediately.
Yeah, honestly, that's expected when you've been with someone so long and one part of that relationship dies. The other person's not long for the world usually, because they're sad that, you know, the love of their life, that who they spent however many years with, is gone. I mean, broken heart syndrome's a real thing.
Yeah, that's what killed my grandmother. She died about 3 or 4 months after my father did.
Mm-hmm. To answer your question, 500, Queen Elizabeth was 96 when she died. Only reason I can remember that is because the meme that came after it saying that America won and England lost again was because Betty White was 99 when she died and Elizabeth was 96 when she died. So there was that sport reference meme that was been floating around that we won again. Which I'm sorry, that was fucking hilarious. But
one of my family friends, their great grandmother, I think is what it was, recently passed, and she would have been 96 if she lived to the end of the month.
Yeah.
Yeah. She was born in even like 26 or something.
Jesus, man, that's a long. That's old.
Yeah.
I wish to live ripe old age, but getting up there, 96, 100, past that, it's like, do you really want to live that long in that, frail of a state?
If I'm still cognitively there and I can still walk on my own and shit like that, maybe.
Oh yeah, if I can get around and do shit on my own and support myself, yeah, that's one thing. But most old people that old, they're in a wheelchair in nursing homes.
Yeah.
Bedridden. I don't want to live like that.
Yeah,
I don't.
Yeah.
But back to the whole Queen Elizabeth thing, that's more or less a title now. She doesn't run shit. The Parliament does.
Yes.
She's just the face of the country. Because it's a tradition to have kings and queens. That's something that should have been done away with centuries ago. So
that's why America doesn't have kings and queens, because we beat their asses in 1776.
Yeah, thank God. Could you imagine what life would be like right now if we didn't?
Oh, Jesus. I mean, hell, I can think if Nazi Germany had won, we'd all be speaking fucking the Heil Hitler and shit like that, probably. Not funny.
Yeah, 500. I agree with that, because Camel Toe Harris would be so much worse.
She is a fucking nut.
And there's been talk already. I don't know how true it is, but I've heard people, question whether they should enact the 25th Amendment on Biden. But if they do that, we're stuck with fucking Harris, and that's not good at all.
No, because, well, I mean, depending on who speaker is after 2023, if it's McCarthy or whoever else, you enact the 25th on Biden, you enact the 14th on Kamala as an anchor baby that has no legal claim to either presidency or vice presidency, and you take power for yourself, then is what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, because I'm sorry, she's an illegitimate VP. She should have never been able to run in that position or any position or except lower. I'm talking about as far as like vice president or president, because she's not
or congressman or whatever, maybe.
Yeah, that's one thing. But holding the highest seat in office, there's a reason why you have to be a naturalized citizen to run for president.
Yep.
And she is not.
Nope.
Plus, she's a scummy piece of shit because all she did was sleep her way to the top, literally.
And the craziest part is when you look at the first guy that she sucked off to get into office being Willie Brown. Who does Willie Brown have ties to? Good old Jim Jones and Jonestown itself.
Mm-hmm.
That was a freaky thing when I remember watching something a couple years ago and I heard that for the first time and I'm like, wait, what? I'm like, that's not the same guy, right? And they're like, and it was like, no, it actually is. And I'm like, oh my God, what the fuck?
That's like Omar. I don't know how she's able to still hold her title, knowing the fact that she divorced her husband to marry her brother so he can get citizenship, and then divorced him and married her husband again. Yeah. And all the other shit that she's done. I don't understand how she's even able to stay in office.
Well, it's like the same thing with Tlaib as well. Her family.
Exactly.
When you look at her family's lineage and stuff like that, it was her grandparents, I believe, came to America seeking asylum in the 70s, I want to say, or even 60s maybe. Because that was when it was whenever Pakistan, I think it was Palestine, wherever the fuck her families were from, one of those P countries is what it is over there in the Middle East. They came over because it was when the Ayatollah and stuff was taking over there, and they were trying to push Islam on everybody is what it was, and they were trying to seek refuge here, and then they were actually legitimately refugees in this country, but now it's like 2 generations later, it's just scummy terrorists is what it is her ass.
Mm-hmm. And she looks crazy.
She's a fucking nut, dude. Like, if it came out tomorrow that both her and Omar had, like, direct ties to terrorist sleeper cells of Islamic faith and stuff like that, I would not be surprised in the least by it.
I wouldn't either.
But, yeah. But, of course, nobody ever wants to talk about that stuff or look into it. It's what it is. It's unfortunate.
I actually have a question. Depending on who they put in Speaker of the House.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's someone good and not a rhino, definitely not a Democrat.
Well, that's the scary part. They were actually talking about possibly working with Democrats to pick a speaker, and I'm like, you have fucking power. Fuck them.
But if we can get someone good as Speaker of the House,
yeah.
Do you think, because I know there was talks about this before, if we were able to win the House, do you think they'll open up an investigation on Hunter Biden and
there's already big man? Talk of them doing so. There's been talk specifically Hunter. There has been no talk of Joe. So it'll be interesting. Like they were talking about one of the first like things for 2023 would be like a probe into Hunter's whole like laptop and everything else like that then. So it'll be interesting to see if that goes anywhere or not. I don't know if it will. I don't know if it'll be just them fucking off and doing their own thing or what it is. Who knows? It could be a bunch of different stuff. It could be them trying to be like, oh yeah, we're totally investigating something over here. Ha 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 ha. And then it turns into nothing. So I don't know. Yeah. It all depends.
But it definitely does. I hope we get someone good as Speaker of the House.
Yeah. Time will tell.
Yep. 500 said Biden has gone in the head and has no idea where he is. I guess he was hammered as well. Yeah. Well, his biggest thing is he's missing part of his brain.
Yeah.
Literally missing part of his brain, and that he's old as fuck. So he's obviously riddled with dementia and Alzheimer's, which not a lot of people talk about, but we do. And so that's bottom line. That's what's wrong with him. He's missing part of his brain, and he's old, and he's got dementia and Alzheimer's. He should be in a dementia ward.
Yeah. I am going to address that comment about Ashley and Hunter Biden both possibly being molested by their father. I don't know. Maybe. The thing is, though, when and this is something, having researched into the whole Hollywood and our government and pedophile rings and stuff like that over the years, one thing I've noticed is it usually, depending on what the person is after, they will usually pick one sex or the other, is what it is. They'll never go both. So if they're into younger girls or whatever the case be, it'll just be girls they'll molest on. If it's younger boys, it'll be younger boys they'll molest on and stuff like that. Now, granted, with people like Obama, I think there is like a pseudo mixture there, is what it is, because he's more prepubescent, is what it is in general. And that's something that John Legend's wife, Chrissy Teigen, actually outed him, her, and herself as the three of them having like some kind of sicko fucking gang rape basically at the White House one time or two. And then deleted all her tweets after that.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Not to mention she bullied someone online to kill themselves.
Yeah, I definitely believe there's a lot of fucking disgusting shit going on in this country, though, and unfortunately,
I wouldn't doubt it if Biden is like that, though, because typically
maybe.
When someone is, I'd say, when someone is molested like that so much, it fucks with their head. That would explain one reason why Hunter Biden is so fucking just gone.
And why it could be too as well, though, where it wasn't Joe that was his predator. It could have been like a buddy of Joe Biden's that was a predator of his or something.
Well, yeah, maybe that's true too. But I mean, look how he's led his life as an adult. He's done so much fucking drugs and alcohol and everything. I'm surprised he's not dead, for one, because dude's crackhead for sure.
Yeah, meth head, 100%.
I guess you could say in some cases it's due to the popularity of this dad, who he is and who he's been. Because like a lot of trust fund babies, they're all wild and eccentric and do stupid shit and think they're above the law, but they typically don't go that far down the rabbit hole as Hunter has done. So something had to have happened to him bad, in my opinion, that has led him down the path that he's been leading.
And it could also just be psychological as well.
True.
It might not have been like physical. It might have just been like, oh, I walked into the bedroom one day and there was Dad with Ashley, and oh my God, now my mind is fucked.
That's true. I mean, we'll never know, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's hard to say. I don't know. It's a sad situation all the way around, and
definitely.
Yeah, I think we're definitely getting worse off though as a nation right now, and unfortunately, you have so many people just willing to double down on stupidity, is what it is.
Yep.
And all these idiots that want to do one-term issues, like, oh, abortion's on the table again, let's vote against everybody, is what it is. Fucking ridiculous. And yet, meanwhile, there's the same people that can't afford a dinner in the next 2 days. So, I don't know. It's just a sad state of affairs that we live in right now. And yeah. Hopefully I can stock the freezer here in the next couple of days, though. There's a place
that was one thing I was saying when you were having technical difficulties. I was saying, if you're not prepared, you better start preparing now, because times are fixing to get hard for all of us.
There's a place around here for the next couple of days right before Thanksgiving that has turkeys on sale for 55 cents a pound, so we're probably going to pick up a couple of those.
Well, that's not bad.
Yeah, that's the cheapest we found them around here anyway. The last time we got one cheaper than that was like 2019 or 2020 when it was like 39 cents a pound. So, and then there's one place that's like, I think it's like a Marks or something like that was like 85 cents a pound. I'm like, that's not a fucking deal, bro. That's just regular price. So, but anyway, yeah. So we're probably gonna hopefully go to that one place here in the next day or two and pick up a couple if they have any left.
That's cool. Yeah.
So
I thought about cooking for the holidays, but I'm just not feeling it this year. Since my mom passed away.
Yeah.
I just not feeling very holiday
Yeah.
Feeling the holidays.
Yeah, I would have been in Honda's chat on Tuesday, but I literally fell asleep like an hour before he sent out links.
I agree with you, 500 Magnum, and I would take it many steps past that.
I was watching Angry's chat with y'all, and then like right after you guys finished or whatever, I just nodded off like 15 minutes after that.
Yeah, the past 2 angry chats, man, they've been awesome. The what if scenarios, that's been awesome. I've been thoroughly enjoying them. Well, thank you, 500. I appreciate it, man. But to what you were saying, to me personally, if someone touched a child, molested them, say if it's a man, I've always said what they need to do is take him to like a barn, nail his dick to a 2x4 on the floor, toss him a rusty knife and set the barn on fire and say, cut it off or die. So they'll either die by the fire or they won't have a dick anymore.
Yeah.
And they probably won't make it out of the fire anyways. I know that sounds horrible and definitely doesn't sound Christian because I'm a Christian. But people like that just don't deserve to live.
It also doesn't really work for lady predators either, which happen to be on the rise quite a bit these days.
Oh no, but there's other things you could do similar.
But yeah, it's just, I don't know. Fucking, we should just bring back like the harshest death penalties for these people. Is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
We've always been into one strike laws for these folks, but unfortunately, people are like, "Oh no, but you can have this one thing or whatever," and it's like, dude, there's a caveat in that whole thing because it's like, there was one I got into with some people a while ago about like age thing, and it was like some 18-year-old dude that like just turns 18, happened to be in a relationship with like a 15 or 16-year-old girl, and it's like, again, that's like one of those sweetheart kind of things that they usually put in legislation anyway.
Yeah, the Juliet clause or whatever.
Laws, yeah. And I'm talking about like the actual predators out there that are like 30, 40, 50-year-old men or women creeping on fucking teenagers or younger at that point.
Yeah, there's a special place in hell for those people. And we should not have, and the sad thing is the reason they live and don't have the death penalty or anything is because the prison system is so flawed. It's for profit. I say we need to restructure the prison system to like it was back in the day where we actually had them. They were on chain gangs busting rocks on the side of the road. They were actually farming for their own food.
Yep.
And make prison so fucking miserable that they would not want to go back again. And if you're on death row, if you're sentenced to death by a jury of your peers, wait like 2 months or so for 2-3 months for an appeal process. If you were denied, death immediately.
Yep.
These people need to be put to death immediately and stop living on the taxpayer's dime.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's a good place to leave off today as well, because I got to get going anyway. Got some stuff I got to finish up. So,
yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was a good chat.
But yeah, we'll be chatting again probably later. I'm sure Honda's going to throw out links in a few hours or whatever.
Oh yeah, today is Saturday. You got Honda's chat later today, guys. So
just be a different thing. I'm sure Matt will be going live here in the next hour or two as well. So
probably. But 500 Magnum, thanks for showing up, man. It was a good chat. Thanks for all your comments and everything, and thanks again for your condolences. It's much appreciated, man. I appreciate it. So, like you said, we'll leave it off there, and we'll see y'all soon.
Yep. See you guys in the next one.